Welcome to The Ladder, a weekly dose of personal development ideas to help spark your imagination, increase your leadership skills, and bring more success into your life. And now, here's your host, James Theros.
Well, hello and welcome again to another episode of The Ladder. This podcast is designed to help the listener ascend the ladder of success. And the ladder of success that I'm speaking of is personal development, not necessarily moving towards a certain amount of money being made each year, or a certain position in your company, or something like that, or within an organization. Those things can certainly be considered in the overall scheme of things. But what we're talking about in these podcasts are ways to improve ourselves, personal and character development, and also to maybe point out some things that a lot of us do to self-sabotage our success in the future. And so sometimes in the process of trying to improve, we have to face some realities and some truths, and we have to own up to the fact that, you know, we are really our own worst enemy sometimes. So that's the goal with this podcast here, and I hope you kind of get that out of it as you listen to it. I'm very excited. Today is January 29th, 2018, and I hold in my hands right here the product of several months that I've been talking about this now, the product of a lot of work that had to go in to creating my brand new book called T.E.A.M, Quest of the Four Friends. It is a short read. It's an easy read. It's really geared towards ages 7 through 12, but I think adults would enjoy it as well. And it's something that the adults can certainly read to the kids over the course of a week, one chapter per night, or maybe even in the last couple of chapters, which are a little longer than the first few, breaking that into 2 different evenings per chapter. So maybe even extending it as far as an extra week or half a week or something like that. So anyway, I'm very excited about it. I'm even more excited about the fact that it's already been sold out on Amazon. It sold out the very first day, and they're restocking as we speak here. So if you're having trouble finding it, give them a week or so and to get the printing taken care of, and that it should be back available on Amazon.com. You can find it by searching my name, James Theros, Theros. And the name of the book, T.E.A.M, and the Quest of the Four Friends. So very, very exciting story, and I'm very proud of it. And if you do happen to pick up a copy of that book, after you read it, please make sure to go on to Amazon and leave me a review. If you really thought it was terrible, please don't lie and say it was great. Tell me what you didn't like about it. That kind of feedback helps me to improve it, and you never know. If I get certain types of feedback, I may even release the book with updates and things of this nature. So I would consider it a personal favor if you would be willing to leave me a review so that other people can find out about this book. And if I get enough reviews and enough interest, then I may consider writing an additional 1 to 2 to 3 volumes of this book, and who knows how many volumes, depending upon the interest level in this. So anyway, today's podcast, I wanted to kind of keep it short, but I'm not starting out too well at the moment by talking about that, so I'm going to go ahead and pivot. Today's concept, or today's subject, is going to be TEAM. T, period, E, period, A, period, M, period, which is an acronym. And you've probably, if you're a person who is involved in personal and character development, or personal development and success mindset, you have more than likely heard this before. And what T.E.A.M stands for is together everyone achieves more. So it's important to remember that nobody's going to become successful on their own. I am certainly not a person who can do it on my own. Now there are a lot of things I can do very well on my own. I have a lot of little skill sets that I put to use in my business and my family life that really make things go well. But there are a lot of things that I don't do very well. One of those things is organization. I will tell you that right now. My wife is much, much better at organization than I am. So I basically give her an idea that I would like to see happen, and she figures out all the details and puts it into an organized fashion to make it possible. Now, that's not to say that I am not, that I can't organized, because if I have the time and the desire to do so, the motivation, then I can organize things very, very well, which is what I do with our school's curriculum. And I'm the sole person with the ages 7 and above who organizes the curriculum at our school. So it isn't that I can't do that, but there are so many working pieces that I can't do it all effectively and expect it to yield the same results that I would like to see from whatever it is I'm working on as a project. So it's important to remember that we all need a team, and the next little piece here is to remember that each team member must know their place on the team. This is a huge one. So as an example, I used to work at McDonald's many, many years ago, for probably 25 or 30 years ago, and I was a shift manager. And I learned the hard way that certain people were better at the cash register, and certain people were better in the grill area in the back, and certain people were better in the drive-through window. And if I put them in the right places as the manager, the business ran much more smoothly. If I took somebody that was better suited for the grill area and threw them into the drive-through, a lot of times we would end up with complaints from customers who would be upset and come in and tell us that they were treated rudely. And vice versa. We would put people that really should have been in the front line of the cashier position, where they have to work with the public and have smiles and great energy and things, and we put them in the back in the grill area. And again, we would end up with complaints because the hamburgers were not consistent. They were burnt, or they were undercooked, or they had too much mustard or too much ketchup or something, or it was taking too long, because those people were not really suited for those positions. Now, in a pinch, any of those positions could be filled by anybody, which is an important principle to know as well. But it's like this at my business here. Mrs. Theris, my wife, knows exactly what she's supposed to be accomplishing and what she's in charge of doing, and I also know what I'm in charge of doing and what I'm expected to accomplish. And we don't often cross the lines on that unless, again, it becomes very busy, which it occasionally does, and becomes necessary for one of us to do the other person's job. But we are very quick to know if somebody comes to me for a question about financial, how much does this cost, or can we do this? Can we come up with a payment plan or something like that, or a lot of anything office related. I'm the person who will create the curriculum, and if you have a question about curriculum, maybe why your son or daughter is not going to be ready for testing, or why we do this or that, the other, I'm your guy for that. If you need to have some help with your child after class getting with one of their techniques to help it get better, or they're giving you trouble at home, again, I'm your guy. But that last one, giving parents trouble at home, it depends on how old the student is and what kind of rapport has been developed between myself and that student, or Mrs. Theris and that student. And sometimes she will be better equipped for that particular one. But we both know when it's time for that, and it may be that we don't know at the beginning of the meeting, but within 2 minutes of that meeting we realize, this is probably a better, we would probably be better off if Mrs. Theris handled this meeting. Would you hang on for a moment? I'm going to bring her into here. And a lot of times I may sit and passively listen and maybe interject here and there if necessary, but I'm actually going to be learning in that environment from, I hate to say my subordinate, because it's can be viewed as a negative term, but my wife, before she came in, I had already owned the school and already got it started and had it running for several years. And so yes, in a lot of ways, she is she's still my team member. She may be a subordinate as far as rank goes, or a subordinate because I was the person who started it, but I don't view her as a subordinate. I'm looking for a term to kind of put a label here to get you, the listener, to understand the concept of what I am speaking about. So in this terms, if she is the subordinate, I still give her the freedom to do whatever she needs to do, and my job is to facilitate making her job easier. So as she used to, calls me the boss and things like that, and I'm the one that creates her paycheck. And really, realistically, she's the one who does all of those things. But on paper, it looks like that with the corporate structure. So anyway, we don't let those titles get in the way. And speaking of titles, I'll get to that in a moment, but that's next on our list here. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm all over the place here this morning. I'm excited. I just got back from Washington, D.C. from a tournament and black belt testing and awards banquet, and it's great to get back here to Florida and get rocking and rolling with the first day of the week. I always love Mondays because it's a great day of the week for me to learn how to be able to work with students and help them help themselves and watch them grow, and I'm excited about that. So anyway, that's probably the reason why I'm speaking so quickly, and I'm trying to get this done in a reasonable time because I've got about an hour and something until my first classes come in. So there's that as well. Anyway, each team member must know their place on the team, and it's vitally important that everybody has an accurate job description. So what is it that I'm responsible for, and what is it that you're responsible for? And in those job descriptions, and the job description can come from can be used in any type of a team. Again, in the family, it's important to say, okay, Joey, you're going to be taking the trash out every Wednesday night. Sally, you're going to be in charge of vacuuming the living room. Billy, you're going to be in charge of mopping the kitchen floor. Dad, you're going to be in charge of the maintenance on the lawn, whether it needs to be mowed or leaves raked or trash taken out to the curb or whatever it is, making sure that everybody in the family or in the organization knows what they're supposed to be doing. And then working from the managerial standpoint, how can I help facilitate that for you to make your job easier? See, it's a mistake to think like the old school thinking of, which is if it is to be, it's up to me when it comes to getting things done. Or if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. Those are old school leadership and management paradigms that no longer serve us properly. And it's important to remember that the new paradigm shift is, how can I serve you? How can I make your job easier? That is my job, is to make your job easier. So as a martial arts instructor, that's my job, is to make a parent's job easier when it comes to parenting that child or teaching them certain skill sets that maybe they're having a difficult time with, maybe with talking back, or maybe with getting good grades, or hanging out with a better type of people, or whatever it is. That's my job, is to be a third-party edifier to that parent and help make their job of parenting easier. And hopefully in the end, they're as pleased as I am with the results that we see in that child, or in some cases with the adult student themselves. Okay, so now the next thing. Here's the big one, all right? You have to learn to avoid JEP. That's my own special acronym, JEP, which the three big mistakes or three sins of leadership or success are jealousy, ego, and pride. Those three things will kill an organization faster than anything else that I know. So I'm going to tell you right up front here, I am guilty of all three of those at multiple times in my life. And I probably will be guilty of them again in the future, to at least to some degree. Jealousy is one of the big ones. So I'll give you kind of an illustration here through a story or two maybe that apply to my jealousy. When I was coming up through the martial arts, I was all about becoming a black belt. And when I became a black belt, my next goal was to start earning those little gold bars on my belt, which indicated first degree, second degree, third degree, fourth degree, and so on and so forth. And I was all about titles back then. I was darn sure that anybody in my classes at that time, when I was just a first degree black belt, it was very important that they knew it was Mr. Theris, not James Theris. I had students who would ask me, because they were close to my age or maybe even a little older, if they could call me by my first name. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't allow you to do that. Who does your child learn better from? And there's truth to what I'm about to say, but it's kind of comes from jealousy. It kind of comes from ego. And I would tell them, who can teach your child better? James Theris or Mr. Theris? And of course they would see the value in that, and they would do it. But nonetheless, that was my ego speaking for the most part. But again, there is some truth to that, so just something to keep in mind. But what I've learned over the years is to drop the titles. When I wrote my first books, I made sure to write the title Master James Theris. I was so excited to be able to put those three words together like that, and I started to see it in other people. I started to see it in other martial arts masters and things, with this whole infighting with who's higher in rank and who's got more stripes on their belt and who's the senior student tonight and where do I line up. And so we were fighting and vying for positions so that we could get closer and closer to our master instructor, and we really wanted to be like that. And even my master, my original master, he attained the rank of Grand Master, but he never allowed us to call him Grand Master. And he was very adamant about, hey, Master Che is fine. You can call me Master. You don't need to call me Grandmaster. I don't need that kind of title. And I was thinking, wow, I don't understand why that is. You earned it, and you should embrace that. And I totally get it now. And I'm of the same mindset. I no longer care about titles, so I went back and I re-edited all of my book covers, which cost me $80 to redo each one of them, and I took the word master out of it, and I just put James Theris. So, what I've learned is if people respect me, if my students respect me, if my parents respect me, they're going to use titles. They're going to still call me master. They're still going to call me Mr. And again, I'm not offended if they call me by my first name. I would prefer my students didn't do that, because then we'd lose our structured discipline. I don't think many teachers in school allow the students to call them by their first name. I think it's a little bit rude to do so. However, if I haven't earned that student's or that parent's respect, then how can I be upset if they call me by my first name? So I do my best to set the right example, and hopefully they pick up on it, and if they respect me, then they're probably going to use Master or Mr. Theris, and there you go. So jealousy, ego, and pride. So when I was coming up through the ranks, I was so adamant about making sure that I was at third degree black belt. I was called an instructor, and when I got fourth degree, I was an associate master, and at fifth degree, I was a master instructor. And when I finally got that, and I started to see other people doing it, and they've got these crazy titles in martial arts in places, the master, associate master, those are okay. Then you get into the chief master and the grandmaster and the supreme grandmaster and all these crazy titles that really it doesn't change the individual. I mean, when a person goes from, let's say, third degree black belt to fourth degree black belt, there's going to be some changes physically with their skill and things. When they go from fourth to fifth, they're going to change a little bit more maybe. But really from fifth to sixth degree black belt, if anything changes, it's probably going to be their understanding or their knowledge, not their physical skills as much. And when they get up to the next level, you're going to see a little bit more of understanding and recognizing where you're at in the whole scheme of things. All of those things, but realistically, physically, we're not going to get that much better between the ranks of, say, fifth degree black belt and the time we die. There can be some improvements, but it's important that we keep these things in mind. And remember that in martial arts, one of the things that we teach as the 4 cornerstones of mental training is modesty. And when we throw these big titles out in front of our names everywhere, I think it can really do us harm, because it's almost being a little hypocritical. We're supposed to be modest about our successes, and we're supposed to be gracious about our failures, because that's what people want to see. If you want to get a team to really follow you, let them see you attempt to do something, and occasionally let them see you fail. When they see you failing, they're going to realize that it's okay to fail. Even my instructor is willing to step out there and fail. Heck, I performed at the black belt test over the weekend with a weapon, and I had to get up in the morning. The day of that, I had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning after teaching until about 9 o'clock, so I didn't even get to bed till about 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the evening. And then I had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or 4:30, whatever it was, and rush to the airport and fly all the way to Washington, D.C., get checked into a hotel, and bang, we were right into a seminar and testing, and I had very little rest, and my legs were very tired, and I made a couple of small errors in my performance. Now, nobody mentioned that. Everybody said, oh, that was a great performance, and they congratulated me and things, but I know it. I recognized it, and guess what? I'm sure that my students and some of the other people recognized it as well, even though they didn't bring it up, but guess what? It's fine. It's all the way that it's how we look at our failures, our mistakes, our setbacks that really help determine how others see us. So when you see somebody fail and they get visibly upset and they throw things and they can't handle losing and things, we kind of lose respect for them a little bit. But when we see somebody who's struggling a little bit, has a failure, they get back up and they brush it off like it was no big deal. They're able to laugh at themselves a little bit. I don't know about you, but I actually respect that person more. I like them a lot because that's what I want to be like. And when I see somebody that's much higher up on the food chain than I am that can handle that, it gives me a lesson there. But it tells me, hey, it's not as bad. Losing is not that bad. you want to learn to make losing your friend, in fact, because that's where you're going to learn all your most important lessons. And if you can stay resilient and keep bouncing back from failure after failure, eventually you're going to figure it out and you're going to move on, and people are going to watch that process, and they're going to watch and see how you handle it, and they're going to watch and see if you're trying to avoid putting yourself out there and failing, right? So there's an old saying that's from a man named Andre Bustanobi, and he says, I would much rather try and fail than not to try for fear of failure. And that's kind of this in action, right? So jealousy, ego, guys, remember this. You have to learn how to spot these things in your own thinking. And I'll tell you what, it can be difficult to detect at first. So that's where your self-reflection comes in. It's important to take a little time in the morning or in the evening and reflect upon your dealings with other people. This is where meditation can come in, and you just sit and meditate or pray about it. Maybe doing some counseling with a mentor or coach and just talking it through, and then you can really dig down to the root cause of what is upsetting you and what is making you miserable at work or in your marriage or in your family lives or whatever. You can, if you start to drill down and understand that there's something that you have to let go of, that's what it often comes down to. Now, there are some times where it truly is the other person, and that's going to happen occasionally as well. So after you do enough self-reflection and you come to the realization that hey, I really am not at fault here, then you could talk to that about the other person. But I'll tell you something. I don't know about you or anybody else listening to this. 9 out of 10 times, maybe 9.9 out of 10 times, when there's a problem with a relationship somewhere, I'm the one who's at fault, because I'm the person who's jealous about something that they said or did, or there's maybe some kind of special treatment that they're getting, and I don't feel that they earned it. All right? I feel that my ego is to the point where I feel like I'm better than that person, and how dare them try to shortcut the system and things and not walk their talk or not pay their dues as to what I got. But the problem with that thinking is, if we expect everybody to do the same things that we're going to do, well, we're not going to have much of a team in the end. We've got to learn how to nurture our team, and we have to recognize when we're at fault and apologize for it and change. We've got to change. As I said, I used to make sure that it was Mr. James Tharrison, Master James Tharrison. I had to put that out there, and if somebody answered the phone and asked for James, I'd say, yeah, Master Tharris is here, or Mr. Tharris is here. And I would get kind of offended if somebody called and asked for me like that over the phone, especially if they were students or parents of students of mine. And I've learned to let that stuff go. I'll tell you, it's the most liberating feeling in the world to let your ego and your pride just go and not worry, not get so bent out of shape about who's getting something for nothing and who's shortcutting the system. If somebody shortcuts the system and they're not paying the dues, guess what? They're not going to have the same results as you or I would have. They may get some accolades that they didn't really earn, and that's fine. Let them have that. Don't try to take that from them. In fact, do the best you can to give them more. Try to lay it on thicker if you can, and give them, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean that in a good way. Give them more of what they crave, because that's part of how you become more successful as a leader, is by showering your members with praise, and sometimes maybe they didn't even earn that praise, but you give that to, maybe it was somebody else's accomplishment or achievement that they're kind of taking credit for. Give them the praise for it. They know in the back of their minds who really did the work, and eventually, if you keep doing it enough, I think that most intelligent people are going to come to the realization that, wow, I'm getting all this credit for something that I didn't even really have much to do with. So I make it a point every year at our awards ceremony to tell everybody who is really responsible for the success in our business. And it certainly isn't me. It is my wife. She is the one who really, behind the scenes, she's the one that really makes it all run like a finely tuned machine. And I'm the person that stands out in front as the face of the organization and the person who does the public speaking and talking. And sometimes that turns out very well, but sometimes I stick my foot in my mouth and we both regret the fact that I even got up there to speak. So that's going to happen. So what I have to do is to learn how to get better at that and learn how to take the jealousy or the ego or the pride out of myself before I start speaking, because that's when I will typically make a mistake, make an error, and mess things up. So I'm still not perfect with these things, but I am working on them. And the longer that I train in martial arts, the more I've been able to let go of those things. I don't even care about where I stand in the classroom. When I first reached black belt, and I could not wait to stand in the senior belt position. But then when we had students or other people my age, or maybe even older or younger, but our rank, they started bickering about who really should get it. I have one more stripe than you, and we're not talking about rank stripe. We're talking about an upgrade stripe or something like that, or their age or something. Instead of me fighting and saying, "Oh, no, it's my spot. Here, please take that spot. I'll go line up in the back," and I remove myself from the situation altogether. And truth be told, that's the reason why I don't do a lot of demonstrating anymore, because I watched it in my organization with the tournaments that we held. I watched my master and all of the other guests literally argue about who was going to go on next and how long they had and how many times they were going to go up and perform. And I got really soured by the whole public demonstration thing, and I felt there was a lot of jealousy, ego, and pride in that, and that's the reason I kind of got turned off from it. And I don't really like to do it too often. I can do it, and I'm pretty effective at it, and I feel like I've got some skill in that area, but I don't want people to feel that about me. So I try not to demonstrate too often. Okay, so 2 more points here. You can accomplish virtually anything as long as you don't care who gets credit for it. Again, praise your team publicly as often as possible, and always let them know when they're doing an excellent job. Sometimes the no news is good news thing works, but not when your team is doing something really well. One of your team members or all of your team members, if they're really making things happen for you, make sure that you let them know you recognize that and you realize that, and go out of your way to publicly make sure that everybody knows that you know this. And you will see a complete turnaround from certain members on your team who will then realize, wow, well, that took a lot for that person to do that. And man, I see them in a different light now. So try to work on doing that if you're not doing that as much. And again, when it comes to credit, I love to give credit where credit is due. If I heard something very good from one of my mentors, I make sure to give my mentor that credit. And I tell everybody, and I'll tell you right here on this podcast, anything that I say, including everything that I've just said, is not my own opinion. It's not things that I just came up with. Yes, I put this together and organized it a little bit, but all of these things were taught to me through books that I've read or mentors that I've spoken with or seminars that I've gone to and listened and taken notes. None of this is mine. This is all rehashed, and again, anybody that's been studying personal development or success mentality things, you've heard these things before. These are just reminders. So this is an example of what I mean by giving credit where credit is due. I don't take any credit for any of these ideas. And when there is an idea that is strictly mine, I will take credit for it. But if it's not mine, I don't want to try to slap my name on it and take credit for it. All right. Finally, if a reprimand is necessary, make sure that it's very specific. Make sure when you reprimand them, you be very, very specific about about what it is that they're being reprimanded for, and make sure that it's behavior centric. And that means you're not really reprimanding the person; you're reprimanding the person's behavior, because the behavior is much easier to change, and that will result in better results for that person, right? And so it's not about a person. We all make mistakes, and some of us, including myself, make them often. It's okay. Making mistakes is how we learn. So if we didn't get corrected, we wouldn't know that we made a mistake. And so that's where we have to learn as parents and as teachers and as seniors and things like this, that we have to learn to correct our juniors. Again, I hate the word subordinate, but we have to learn how to correct them and make sure that it's done tactfully and with love, to make sure that they understand, hey, listen, I don't want to correct you, but this is something you did that I'm trying to help you so it doesn't happen again. And you do it in the wrong place where maybe the other person is not going to be as tactful about it and really lay into you. Because I've had both sides, and I really appreciate when somebody gives me feedback. And sometimes it's eating humble pie. I really don't like hearing what I'm hearing, but after I have time to reflect on it and see it from their perspective, most times I am in agreement with that person, and I'm very thankful that they took the time to give me that feedback, because that's the only way that I'm going to improve. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. So there you are, guys. Team. Together, everyone achieves more. You can't accomplish it on your own. No man is an island unto himself. You need a team. All right? Each member must know their place on the team. Learn to let go of jealousy, ego, and pride. Learn to spot them in your own thinking. And Remember, you can accomplish virtually anything as long as you don't care who gets credit for it. Praise your team publicly and as often as possible, and always let them know when they're doing an excellent job. And finally, if a reprimand is necessary, make sure that it's very specific and behavior-centric, and always try to make sure to do it privately. Until next week, this is James Theris saying be a great team member.